Hey, Allison.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What would be most helpful?
Um, I guess I'll jump right in.
Let's
So
do it.
I am a fairly new clinician. I graduated last year.
Uh-huh.
I practiced in January. I worked at a group practice for a little while. Um, but I found this beautiful space and I am on Blue Cross insurance panels. And business is great.
Hmm.
I, I love it. But it's really hard to navigate as a new clinician and learning all the business stuff
Hmm.
they told me in grad school. But it's just a lot. And I'm very sensitive. Like I've worked up to like 13 clients a week. That's kind of like what I could handle. Uh,
Hmm.
and like make sure I'm taking care of myself and finding balance and stuff like that. Um, but I don't know, like I feel this urge to do more or do something different.
Hmm.
I have a little bit of a unique position. My partner travels a lot, probably 2 weeks out of the month.
Oh, wow.
My schedule does flux.
Hmm.
And I found it hard to communicate that with clients and just like, what do I say? Like, how do I communicate that? Sometimes things might switch around or it might not be available as much. And two, just like personally, like I'm a routine kind of person, but I know like my life situation and this business has provided me like of I need to be flexible. So
Hmm.
um I don't know. I just kind of like need help navigating that. And if
Yeah.
more other people do that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about like when your partner is home, is that when you're working less or are you traveling with them or how's it working?
I work more. So he's home. He works from home when he's home
Got
and
it.
takes care of everything at home. And so I can be at my office a lot more.
Hmm. Got it. And then when he's traveling, are you going with him?
No, I'm home and doing childcare and pets
Got it.
and the thing. So yeah, I'm home a lot more.
Got it. So it's all the like home responsibilities that are making it so that the consistency isn't
Yeah.
really doable.
And I
Hmm.
haven't had like bad feedback from clients. I just wonder if there's a way to communicate that
Hmm.
just so people know what they're kind of getting into.
Yeah. Have you considered childcare during those weeks?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot on me to kind of handle everything at home
Mhm.
all at once. So I prefer just a lighter load.
Uh-huh. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're kind of in this setup where, well, does he travel like two concurrent weeks or is it like home a week, gone a week, home a week, gone a week?
Yeah. It's like home a week, gone a week, home a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to that end, you could really work with people who need every other week schedules, whether they're just like lower acuity. What is your niche? Who do you love to work with?
I work with women who have trauma. I usually
Uh,
trauma or religious trauma. And then I see some postpartum clients as well.
mhm.
Um, so a higher-ish acuity.
Right.
Yeah.
Not easy for every other week for some of them. Okay. And is 13 like the top that you want to see while he's home, or is that the top that you want to see while he's gone?
Um, I could, I would love to work up to like 15 to 18. I feel good doing that when he's home.
Mhm. And then what's the perfect number when he's not home?
I would say probably like 8 to 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
that feels doable. Within your niche, are there people that you're currently seeing that are good for every other week?
I think so. I've also thought about doing kind of like more intensive kind of things, like maybe
Yeah.
2 hour session one week and then off and like kind of
Hmm.
fluctuating it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see like we have a lot of students, especially in our limitless practice program, who are full, but they're putting into place EMDR intensives, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, would intensives work like 2 hours one week, break 2 hours the next week? Would that work for your clients when you think about the people in your actual caseload?
Um, Probably not. I mean, I have a lot of moms and
Mhm.
people with kids. So childcare and work and stuff like that, like 1 hour a week is hard to get, I
Mhm.
think, already. Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be less hard though. Like when I think about, like I had to arrange childcare for Friday, for instance, and it's easier to get a block of time than
Sure.
1 hour.
Yeah.
And if it's a block of time every other week, it's less juggling week to week. But I guess like clinically, I'm wondering, would it be efficacious for them every
I
other week?
think for my EMDR clients, I actually prefer a longer amount of time because it feels choppy with
Uh-huh.
50, you know. Um, so maybe, yeah.
Hmm. I'm just wondering if you can like set up your practice so that it's basically every other week and you have like a heavier week every other week. Um, and like that's how your practice runs, and then attract the people for whom that's a good fit. And they might not know, like that's going to be up to you to assess in that initial phone call. Um, yeah. And I'm wondering about like other like longer intensives. I don't know if you've looked into like the 4 hour intensives that folks do with EMDR that um are good with like, some sessions on either side of it, but they're good kind of like get stuff done sessions. I'm like, I'm real big, as you know, on you can have what you want. So I want us to figure out like what that can look like, if that means altering your ideal client, like if that's required in order to have what you want, versus tweaking it, versus maybe they're already on your caseload and you just haven't broached it. Um, intellectually or verbally.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I do have I have like three populations I love to work with.
Mhm.
Postpartum women, I've done a lot of training in that. But that feels heavy if my whole caseload was
Yeah.
postpartum.
Yeah.
Um, and then religious trauma, that one
Mhm.
doesn't seem as heavy. And then just like childhood trauma and how that shows up in relationships for women.
Mhm.
Um, those seem less heavy. But I wonder if I market one more than the other, maybe that would help the situation.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking too, Blue Cross Blue Shield isn't going to pay you for 2 hour sessions.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
that's true.
that this might mean switching over to private pay.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know. I don't feel super strongly either way. I think I love being accessible and it's really helped me fill my practice,
Yeah.
like, being on insurance panels. But I could. I mean, that'd
Yeah.
probably open up a lot more time too.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it would open up time. It would also require time because you're going to have to market so much more, which like I'm hearing you say, like, I'm kind of overwhelmed just being a new clinician, period. I'm overwhelmed being new in private practice. And so I think it might be like feeling more confident with both of those pieces before making that leap might be important in order to really like not explode. We don't want you to explode.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I know in one of the lessons in the abundance party, I can
Mhm.
never say that.
You got it.
Out of my mouth. Just like getting the foundations down first. And so I think that's also kind of hold me back from, okay, let's do intensives, let's do all this other stuff.
Mhm.
I'm still like finding my footing a little
Yeah.
bit.
Where is it shaky in your business? Like what foundations aren't set?
Hmm. Ah, I need to, I mean, I think maybe a little bit financially, like I'm still under supervision. That's like an added cost and
Mhm.
um finding my way into the community. I also am new to my community. I don't
Mhm.
have a lot of contacts. So really I think feeling just like settled,
Mhm.
as weird as that sounds, like that's where it's shaky. I don't feel
Yeah.
settled in the community. or financially yet, or yeah. I feel stable with getting referrals and getting the right clients in.
Mhm.
Um,
That's huge.
yeah,
I mean, like, I just want to commend you. It has not been that long. You were new to this. You're kicking ass. This is awesome.
thank you.
And I think that it's figuring out, it may be you get, maybe you have a cycle where your people, if you're like, I'm thinking about staying on insurance and you're getting your people to a place where every other week makes the most sense. And you just have an ongoing cycle of that, where you've got the newbies coming in weekly because that's where their needs are. And then as people are getting like more internal support and structure to be able to handle everything that's going on in their lives, they're just naturally able to go every other week, rely on themselves a little bit more in between. And then they shift. I think it would be absolutely possible to do that. It would take some maneuvering to get it to where it's like 18 people one week. And what did you say for the other? Was it 10?
10 to 13. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally doable, honestly. If you're keeping your eye on, can this person go to every other week? And that's something you can prep them for in the beginning and say, like, my goal, I want you to be self-supporting. That's my goal, is to put myself out of business with you. And so we're going to start every week so that you have the support that you need. And then when it's feeling like every other week is a good pace for us to go and for you to kind of test out how that feels, then we'll have that conversation. I feel like that division of 1813 or 1810, I feel like that could absolutely be done just kind of more organically that way, instead of having to change your whole business model.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. And I will say, just as a new clinician, I'm pretty good at feeling out like who might be too high of an acuity for me. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty low within the scope of my niche.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, yeah, I think that's doable. I
Yeah.
think I'll be up for it. And I usually have pretty busy people
Mm-hmm.
office and um yeah, they're usually up for bi-weekly.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I think too, when you set it up that way on the front end, or the people you haven't set it up with, like when you have this conversation, there's like a sense of pride of like, okay, I'm making significant progress, that a client feels when you're like, you know what, I think you're doing really well. I would like to try every other week. How does that sound to you? And that way they can, if they're like, I am not ready for that, then you can know and you can stay weekly. But there is, I know with my clients, when we have those conversations, they feel like they kind of sit up a little straighter, a sense of like, yeah, you're noticing me, feeling like doing all the work that I'm doing to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. They really do. Um I've also kind of tried to systemize a lot. Like
Good.
put my Calendly link in my website, like right on my booking page. So I don't have to do the whole back and
Mhm.
forth trying to set up appointments. I'm not sure what else I could do, maybe just to like reduce the load of the admin stuff outside of client work.
Mhm.
Kind of what else I was thinking.
Yeah. I think the only other systemization, do you have it set up where people, what EHR are you using right now?
I use therapy notes.
Okay, cool. Um, do you have a system to bill regularly and easily? Like, is it basically automatic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not hearing system pains. It's more like balancing caseload pains.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as your partner's schedule is on, off with that kind of regularity, then your practice can be too.
Yeah.
And even if like there's a hiccup in his where like for some like a holiday happens or something, and so it shifts, like you can shift your practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I just always like feel like, oh my gosh, it has to be weekly. It has to be 50 minutes. We have to do it the way everyone
Yeah.
else is doing it. But in just being new in general, I think
Mhm.
I just get nervous of what could I do differently? What
Yeah.
makes sense?
Yeah. It's nice to have a container to work within when it works for you. But
Yeah.
the container that you're trying to work within doesn't work for you. Like that's not,
Yeah.
it's not sustainable for you to be able to feel like you're doing all the things you need to do for your life as well as work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the beauty is you don't have to work within that container anymore. And there are some really out of the box ways to go about it. And then there are some like really organic, smooth ways to go about it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like I'm like working around the container as I like catch my footing as a new clinician and not like going all the way to the moon and doing just really interesting, fun things. But maybe in a little while I can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else that would be helpful?
Um, I think maybe just if we have a few minutes, talk
Mhm.
about like niching and communicating that a little bit better.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a lot going on.
Sounds like it.
Um, I want to target like women with childhood trauma,
Mhm.
but that gets kind of sticky sometimes. I think when I try to communicate that, it falls into like a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Um, and so I've kind of just focused on like women with depression, anxiety, but then I'm like, I don't know if people really know that they have those things or would use that language.
Mhm. Yeah, and it depends on your ideal client, right? Because when I think of people who are like, I had childhood trauma, I think of people who have just awoken to the fact that like the childhood trauma is impacting them and needs to be addressed. We have those folks who have up until now been dealing with anxiety, depression, relationship issues, etc. And then we have people who identify as childhood trauma. Like it has become a large part of their identity. And that comes with a lot of depression, anxiety, relationship issues. And so if you were to say, like, I work with women with childhood trauma, for instance, you're often going to get one of those two or both of those people in your practice, depending on how you message it. If your person is not there yet, right? Like they're experiencing anxiety and depression, they're um, like they know shit was bad, like they know that wasn't okay, but
Yeah.
it feels like a lifetime ago. And here they are, and they are functioning, they are over functioning, they are like doing all the things that they have like needed their parents to do for them.
Yeah.
Like they're being that mom now. Maybe a little helicoptery, maybe, these kinds of things. So it's not what they're coming into therapy for most of the time. It's probably they're coming into therapy because they're overwhelmed or they're burned out or they're feeling like everything's on them. That's something I hear a lot. And then when you realize like, are you taking on everything by default for a reason? And is that reason because you had to do that as a kid? So there's a lot of digging into it that you get to do in session, but when you're calling them in marketing wise, what you're messaging isn't necessarily about the childhood trauma at that phase. It's about the anxiety and depression. So it's describing the anxiety and depression as they feel it, how it manifests,
Yeah.
and maybe not using those words. I mean, I think most people could be like, yeah, I'm anxious in a way that is accurate,
Mhm.
or I worry all the time, or some other, way of putting it. Depression, I think some people are like, well, I'm getting out of bed, I'm showering, so I don't think I have depression, you know. So I'd be careful with that word unless your person is having a really hard time functioning.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When I think of my ideal client, it's like maybe a first time mom, like you're discovering like, oh, parenting things are different from what I remember. And
Mm-hmm.
my relationship with my parents wasn't at what I thought it was. And then like we start to dig in there, and that's kind of how I landed into this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So maybe I could target that.
Yeah,
feeling a little bit more. Yeah.
absolutely. Because I think about like, I mean, I think being a new mom is a cluster for anyone, right? Like it's so much. And when you haven't had like good enough in quotes parenting growing up, it's particularly hard
Yeah.
and, you know, puts you at risk for a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I see a lot of like postpartum depression, kind of more of like mom rage. And then
Mm-hmm.
a lot because of the dissonance of power and responsibilities and what they were modeled as kids. Like that's where I see it pop up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then the mom guilt that follows that rage, right? Yeah. And so talking about that rage and how it's so uncharacteristic for who they have known themselves to be. Talk about how like it just feels so it feels scary to be out of control or to feel feelings that are so incredibly uncomfortable and make you feel like a bad person. Like really digging into that lived experience and how, you know, you're snapping or you're yelling or you're doing whatever. Um, and
Yeah.
maybe you've never yelled in your whole entire life, you know,
Yeah.
and having to be like, did becoming a mom like turn me into this new person that I don't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this. Yeah. I can like really feel like my ideal client just like talking and how I can communicate that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Awesome. Yay.
Well, thank you so much. This was
Absolutely.
cool.
I'm really glad. I'm so glad. And yeah, let us know how it's going in the party. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help in that Facebook group. We're there. So
Okay. Awesome.
awesome. Yay. Take good care.
Thank you. You too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.